Hello, choice. Did you know nobody gets more depressed than those with too much choice? Choice, it's a bad thing. And that's why we are being programmed and kept under control. And the bigger, the stronger the control, the smarter we become, the more inventive we become, the more we think we have options, and there is always option of tomorrow, the less incentive we have, and the more likely we are to be depressed. The least depression is encountered during the war. Another day, another $1 million, huh? The reason why there is absolutely no way that we will turn back to the nuclear family and to the good old values is because of choice. When there is no incentive to work with what you've got, because everything is disposable and you can change it and you can always choose anew. First of all, you will have endless regret because at any one time you will choose one thing versus another, and you will constantly be plagued by what would it have been had I chosen something else. I look at people that have very little choice in countries that we look down upon. They end up having the most beautiful marriages, the most the happier lives, and so forth, because they know that they will have two kids that are promised to one another, or two people that are promised to one another. They know that once they choose and say yes, there will be no plan B, no option B. So they can't afford to trash each other and dispose of each other and behave in a disposing, indifferent way. So they court one another longer. They get to know each other longer. They make the decision after a longer time because they know why once they have decided, that's it. They can't get out. So that's what I'm saying. Example, Afghanistan. For two kids that are promised to one another, considering they know they can't change their mind once the deed is done, and despite what the propaganda machine is saying, they respect their women, they choose carefully, and their women are wonderful to their men, and they live much, much happier lives. Why do I say this? Because I've been also totally indoctrinated, anti-Muslim, totally. And it's so funny because I was just talking to someone about someone else I know from Afghanistan and how they're courting each other and how they're developing, and the story with this guy's mom and dad and so on, and the life they built in Afghanistan and so on. And the first thing the woman tells me is the movie Not Without My Daughter. And she said, no, I don't believe. And I was like, that's indoctrination. Just like the villain in all of the movies past the 80s was always an Arab. That was indoctrination for what was to come. That was predicted programming. And I was too very, very indoctrinated until I've moved here, and I got to live and talk and see and spend 5 years with another culture. And all I can say is I've got full respect. And I'm not the kind of person to look at it from the perspective of the religion. For me, religion is anyway tradition. And I would never consider religion of any value whatsoever other than its tradition. So it's not that I'm about to change religions, because I don't have one to change from to. So it's not about that. It's about the concept of choice. And why I'm talking about this, because in the Truther movement, especially since the research in Tartaria and the impossible architecture and the beautiful buildings that have been built in the 1800s, what I noticed is that a utopia is forming, a life of utopia that is imagined by looking at all of this architecture and thinking, oh, people had it so good back then on the planet, was free energy, was healing, was this and that, everything was for the people, quality of life was bad. So basically, from where we are, we look at the past we never had, and we fantasize from our present moment how fantastic it could have been. Yeah, it could have been. But to build something to the quality and the perfection that we see the impossible architecture being built, interior and exterior, to the level of the detail that it was done, it was clear that time was invested, and profit and bottom line was not a priority. Now, this past civilization that made all of this possible, do you think that these people would have had a 9-to-5 program? They went home, they called in sick, they had all the choices in the world to go or to not go to work, no. There were apprenticeships, there were long apprenticeships, and there were work days until you were told you can go to sleep. There was slavery, there was people working for a place to sleep and a plate of food, and there was no choice. This generation now, it's also complaining why the corner shop, the corner boutique, the corner bakery, and everything is closing down, and everything is taken by the corporations, and how evil that is. There is some plan behind it. Yet the same people are the same people that would not keep a job, would not progress in anything, would not follow through with anything, cannot even sew a button, can no longer repair anything. To them, everything is disposable, just chuck it. And they're the ones that look at the use by date. And they're the ones that get bored of absolutely everything and anything, and they want change. Our consciousness, we live in the square boxes we live in, and we have a square life. simply because we want convenience and we want time to think. You cannot have both. So this utopia that people are imagining, that the past was for the people, they are mistaking, terribly, terribly mistaking, imagining that, oh, how fantastic it was. No. As much as I love them, I came to Europe for the architecture. I travel for the architecture, and it's my passion, and I take endless photos, and I admire, and I love it. But just think what it takes for 40, 50 years. So first of all, you commit yourself to an apprenticeship from when you can walk, basically. Child labor was a well-known fact. You enter an apprenticeship, you're treated like a dog, and all you know is to do your job so you deserve your plate of food and your bed. The status of society has never been better for the masses than it is now. And this utopia, this utopic past that people seem to imagine that we had is just not coherent, not congruent with what we see. Because think of what it takes, the commitment, the dedication, and the knowledge, and the level of skill and mastery that must be achieved for everything that we see. All of this takes time, because ancient aliens didn't do it. When I look at what TLC, the Learning Channel, the History Channel, and Natural Geographic, something like that, what these channels are promoting, I'm dumbfounded. I'm absolutely dumbfounded. It's ridiculous. And just ask yourself, how much would you want for the convenience of your community to go day in, day out in your bakery or your cake shop or whatever, and day in, day out serve the same number of people with the same number of stories, with the same bullshit, the same product, just so the community has the local little shop that you fantasize that should stay open. Because everyone has this expectation that things should be how they were, not understanding that the consciousness is no longer there. People were consciously at the level, they were blend enough, they were willing to compromise enough to keep the same job, to keep the same marriage, to keep the sameness. Now nobody wants to keep the sameness. Nobody is keeping, and nobody can stay too long in one thing because they are bored. They get bored. They want to do better. They want to grow. Now we are in a era of personal individual growth. Therefore, the stagnation that implies sticking with one thing to mastery, or sticking to to only one thing for the sake of continuity, or for the sake of a nice little neighborhood, is simply no longer feasible because we have changed. So we can blame these people conspired for this, and the corporations conspired for that, and the schools conspired for that, and no. It's our consciousness that has shifted. So with a consciousness that cannot focus to, I look, for example, me. There is not one video that I don't watch at 1.5 or 1.75 speed. Even the way I speak now, because I have to think what I'm saying, is too slow. When I listen to my own videos, I speed them up. Look at the TikTok generation, an attention span of 15 seconds. What mastery can they produce? They can only have enough attention span to learn a TikTok dance. So it's not just that on one hand we want to build like we built before, and we want buildings like we built before, the impossible architecture, the one with the Antiquitech, but at the same time we want a minimum hourly rate of so much. We want so many weeks holiday, we want so much this and that and the other, and so many breaks and so many rights and so much of everything that we want. It doesn't go together. And so again, the outside, it's a reflection. Even architecture is the reflection of the collective consciousness. And we are in boxes because everyone wants to go home to their PlayStation, to their online shopping, and to their 2.5 kids. When you have a farm, when you have for a plate of food to work a summer long and a spring long and an autumn long, there is no time to think, there is no time for philosophy, there is no time for getting bored, there is no time for change. So, is it our fault that we live in boxes? It's not a matter of fault. It's unfortunately this regress that we're seeing, this devolvement. My cats are going nuts. Every time I film, my cats are going nuts. My cats are going bananas. Yeah, so during the war is the least amount of depression in people. The simple fact that they survived another day, it's enough to keep them happy. There's no depression during war. And need teaches you. And choice, it's as good as democracy to the stupid. Yeah, we are where we are because we can't be anywhere else. We have to look at ourselves and what we're willing to do and for how long. When I look at how many people cannot screw a light bulb in, they call their landlord or landlady to change light bulbs. When I look at how many people cannot repair the simplest thing and they just throw it away because it's so cheap to buy another. When you look that you can't repair, it's cheaper to buy a new wash machine, vacuum cleaner, whatever, then to get it repaired, you will understand why Mastercraft is no longer feasible. And is this progress? I don't know. It's just another way of being. But this concept that, oh my God, we had free this and free that. One thing that I know is that history, and the same people that think of this utopic past, the same people say history repeats itself. There was a ruling class, there was mastery, and people kept their place for the extent of their life. And that was that. Was that more fulfilling? Yeah. It's more fulfilling to build something like this and get something like this out of your hands than just paper pushing for no reason whatsoever, these meaningless jobs that are being, so many people are doing. Yeah, so obviously there was enough variety in one's craft to give them the satisfaction and the integrity and what they needed to build themselves up. Absolutely. As far as going back to what we had now, and it's all because we have more choice. It's as simple as that. We have more choice, and it's not a good thing. Every time I go to the supermarket, I think I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what I want to eat. None of this speaks to me, and I go back out. And again, I give the example of the restaurant. Go to a restaurant that has everything, but no menu. And look what you're going to ask for. Pizza or McDonald's. Because unless you are a gourmand and you have an unlimited knowledge of whatever, your choice is going to be pretty limited by your consciousness. There was this thing where in the States they were doing all these competitions, jingle competitions, and the winner was given the opportunity to travel wherever they desired, all around, wherever they wanted, outside of their country. Everything they wanted was possible. 99.9% of people would travel no further than their state, someplace in their state. Very few people would take a trip to Paris or a trip to Italy or anything like that. And can we blame it on lack of education or some other mysterious force that is stopping the education and so on? The education is the way it is because someone figured out our psychology, and we are a pretty limited computer, and it's very clear that just throwing information at someone and flooding them with information does not mean they're educated, does not mean that they know. The most idiotic man I've ever met had 5 doctorates. He was literally a professional student, and he was an absolute imbecile. And he couldn't think. He could regurgitate the 100 books that he knew. And he gave his doctorate on. He could regurgitate like a good parrot. But his critical thinking was 0. He ended up living by himself and so on. And he wanted to cook pancakes. And he saw that the recipe for pancakes asked for 2 eggs, so many milliliters of milk, and so much flour. He goes to the shop and he asks for 2 eggs, so many milliliters of milk, like he had no concept of what the fuck he's doing. And that eggs don't come in 2s. That's how stupid he was. He had no contact with reality. And he was so stuck in his doctrine. So that's what doctor means, indoctrinated. It doesn't mean smart. And this is not just this, but everyone can give an example like this, I'm sure. Just more information does not mean knowledge. Information does not equal knowledge. So that's why even if our schooling was better and we were all schooled in all the magic arts and the real physics and real chemistry and alchemy and philosophies and whatever, we would all be a bunch of know-it-alls, jacks of all trades, masters of none. That's all that we would be. All professional students thinking that we are so fantastic in what the fuck we know in our little 10 books. So that's why I do this research that I do, and that's why I say real knowledge comes when you are open to be channeling, and you channel what is needed for when is needed, and when you know something, it's not a matter of belief, it's not a matter of opinion, you really feel like you know it. You really, there is no argument, there is no plan B. And that knowledge is given to you. You don't produce it, you don't write a thesis on it from whatever you were taught to regurgitate from. It's something that is transmitted through you. And it's not yours to keep. It's yours to let it flow. Free was given, free should be given away. So this again I say because I still see a bunch of people that don't grasp that they didn't pull out of their ass their information that they're doing videos on and speak upon. They don't pull it out of their ass. It's given to them. And the same information that needs to be birthed in that particular time in history, it's like that poem that I was talking in so many videos about, is that poem that's floating, looking for a poet. And so the same information comes to someone else at the same time, and it's whoever else it's open will pick up with their antenna the same information. They're gonna say it in another word. And all this bitching about, oh, and they say talk about the same thing that I talked about, and they don't give me credit. What the fuck? I see this so much in the truthing community. They all want credit. The fuck you want credit for? Go get a degree then if you want credit. So yeah, things are the way they are because we are the way we are. And someone somewhere knows the extent of our capacity. And we are not the same people that could keep our ass down for 40, 50 years producing the same something. Hence, apprenticeships now are so few and far between. And no one can even stitch a button anymore. That's very sad. Yeah. I think it's sad because the people that don't take it upon themselves to actually master something those who stand for nothing will fall for anything. These are the people that literally are owners of nothing. They own they don't feel ownership over anything. Because to be to have a job that you master, to have a skill that you master, to have a hobby that you're the best at, to at least know yourself to the best of, so to the best that you can know yourself, possibly know yourself. That in itself, self-knowledge is mastery as well. And if you don't have that, you're literally easy prey. And you yourself render yourself disposable. You're easily replaceable. Especially with this new culture where you want to be and you want to do like someone else. Monkey see, monkey do. The more you imitate, the more disposable you are. The more you can't discover and express your own identity, the more unidentifiable you are. The more you have no identity, the more you can be replaced by a fucking robot. And so it should be. So, yeah. Good luck with that.